This is testimony part 2, and I'm recording this as Venus conjunct Chiron and ruling Jupiter and Uranus conjunction in Taurus, tropical Taurus. So I don't even know where to begin. Well, I'll begin by saying that in terms of like vocation, I found out that I'm a creative person, and that would put me in situations where the only viable way for income would include some sort of creativity if I wanted to stay healthy. So I already mentioned that I was sick in most of my jobs when I tried to get a jobby job, but now I want to talk about like the other side. And I grew up, let's say my high school years were in a central city in Israel called Ramat Gan, where a lot of the who's and who's are at. And when I did screenwriting, then even when I worked at my jobby job, I had a kind of quasi boyfriend that introduced me to someone who was in the industry, and we wrote a screenplay together. And I wrote My Name is Sister Spooky, so it won #1 film festival in LA for student films, but it was on Sister Spooky, and I think it's not that bad in retrospective. It was like I was doing that impulsively, and then I was thinking, oh damn, why didn't I write my name? I mean, it's an achievement that I have to my name. I didn't get any money from that, but it was like pride, and now I'm like, oh, maybe it's okay that they, being more mature, maybe that's okay. As far as industry came, I basically volunteered on student film productions, as we always do when we study filmmaking. I studied 1 year filmmaking, and I did some screenwriting, and I understood that I want to maintain like my creative side, so I wrote for myself basically, and published some in a vlog, but not like for money. And I didn't go on productions. Fortunately, I was not present at all the Me Too stuff that were already happening there. At academia, I would write a satire. That would be my way to deal with the kind of Me Too case. But that Me Too case included all kinds of like weird stuff. And I was skipping way forward. I was a TA in academia, and one of my 3 courses, we were kind of like sitting at the pub all day after the classes, and it was kind of fun and sociable. And this is also how you make connections, how you actually get to know people. So it's not like I have anything against that. I think that in a healthy environment it should actually be cool. But at the time, I was trying to save money for like my PhD, and I learned about the fraternity parties in the US. I did not really go to much parties in Israel. We didn't have like fraternities out loud that much. And my concern was more like coming from the TA position, like I would have to support people who've been, all the triggers, all my testimonials, gang raped. And I understood that this is like a real deal. Okay, people go to these parties, there's kind of like fraternity parties. And then I went to a therapy which I did not know. It's not, they don't know it's energy. I went to a therapy which I did not know. It was EMDR, and I did not know it's affiliated with like Scientology and stuff. So you get kind of weird events, like the person trying to make me understand that I'm in a situation where the person who is my superior at work is kind of off. And until I get it, and once I get it and I start doing something about it, which was the satire, the pre-satire post, he gets cold feet. And I'm like, what's going on? Why is he acting so weird? Of course, because you're in a cult. You can't really say anything. And then I had to stop there. So fast forward, I did a channeling experiment after I took a break from uni. Already in uni, I felt like certain things like spiritual stuff or channelings, or I felt like I felt some sort of something that I was more interested in. And I felt like if I tried to explain methodically what I do, I would never succeed. But then when more epistemic options are open and more ontological options are open for me to discuss, then I might be able to be more accurate with myself. And I explored this. So fast forward to after my they don't know what's energy therapy, which went very bizarre and life risking eventually. I would be studying aromatherapy and then channeling, and then I did a channeling experiment. During this time, when I was also in a transition in my life and I was also in between houses, I really experienced also all the good stuff of channeling. That means I was suddenly able to sing like Beyonce. I was suddenly able to dance in various ways. I was suddenly able to do things that when I practiced on just cognitively, even with all my channeling and stuff, I could never do this. And it would take me like decades to sing, certain riffs or stuff like that. And suddenly I was able to do this, but it included a complete devotion to this channeling. I was channeling day and night, and everything, every move that I made was channeled. I was so curious about this thing. And eventually, when I found my home, and then kind of Pluto went retrograde, and I took, of course, my power back, because at first I was very curious about that. It's all in, and then kind of taking my power back. It's like, okay, there is my voice as well. I remember I was shown a clip of Michael Jackson, and what I was paying attention to was his unhappiness when it came to like, fame or singing or creativity. And I forgot about this. Recently, okay, I do work with a talisman that has to do with like the creation of the world. And I found that for many people there were just like positive synchronicities and stuff like that, for me too. But for me, immediately I was introduced to the cults of like Opus Dei and all the weird stuff happening in Europe, but not only in Europe. And it was packed in the Netherlands, so I was getting a lot of stuff from that may or may not include my family even. Like, you really don't know which people are where. And so things began to build up, and I've slowly introduced to the fact that what people say Illuminati or like those secret societies, it's really everywhere. So much so that nobody can really get any stepping without this. And I was shown, it was kind of like a relief tone. I was shown like this is why you never were ushered into these things that you were supposedly meant to do. Because I'm a writer. I am a creative person. Those are the fields where I express myself. Yes, I also dealt with like cosmology and philosophy and stuff like that. It's a part, art and science is a part of one another. It's not distinct. But it was kind of a relief, but also a reality check to show me that I was kind of guarded or saved from actually breaking out into these places. And kind of like the life, I was shown star after star, whether it was Beyonce or Michael Jackson, or people kind of was shown star after star, kind of like a snippet of what would be the life like in this way. I'm not saying that I know what their life are like. It's not in that way, but more of like, what does this thing require, and the type of relational cringy stuff that's going on in those ways and in those fields and endeavors. Um, and just right now, what prompted me to press record, and usually I mention it in the beginning, but I mention it now, was a YouTube I saw about an influencer who was invited to a party, and they thought that they're going to get rich because they were noticed, and suddenly somebody notices them. And I didn't even finish to watch the whole thing before I pressed record, because this party turned out to be one of these occultist parties. And what's bad about this is not the occultist parties, or they have a secret society, or they do funny rituals. It's not about that. It's about that the higher up you go in the rank, they abuse people. They cause people to have like this telepathy or clairvoyance or clairaudience through trauma, not in the way you're supposed to develop that. Okay, you're supposed to. We all have this naturally, and we're supposed to be attuned to that through the path of connection and presence and joy, and in that way, not like in a traumatic way. Unfortunately, people who experience trauma experience extrasensory perception because their somatic experience, the experience inside in the body, is sacrificed. Okay, so as a person who had been since childhood experiencing such things, I don't know to tell you exactly what happened to me in childhood, or I don't know these things. And so there was also a big earthquake when I was a couple of years old, and yeah, my parents thought they would jump with me. So it's like, I really don't know. But, and some psychic ability, children are psychic in general. So it just kind of dawned on me that these child sacrifice, these rituals are really everywhere. And by the way, part of the things that I saw that they make these people do, let's say I saw it on a man, that he would watch like really, really violent stuff to get himself used to violence, so that if he will have to perform in such situations, he will be okay. And this was the rationale that he was put in, and he would perpetually watch these things. And then he would also talk about like making the place where we lived, a neighborhood where we lived, like a city, and not really caring that much about the people who cannot work or who need kind of like social welfare. And I see that this is very much 2030, and he was Mason. So we found out, okay, my friend found out that was the person that they kind of found out they have books, because they're not supposed, he didn't tell us. So yes, it's not like we're outing somebody, he didn't tell us. We just found some books, and my friend was curious, and he read these books. I didn't even look at them. So I mean, of course I wouldn't break into his room, but the friend did it because they lived together. The way that this Venus Chiron in my second house operates for me now is this deep realization. It's both a reality check, which is really disturbing. I've been talking about this. Like, you want to hear a song that's not, secret society infiltrated. It's not embedded with the type of energies of people who are enabling child ritual sacrifice and all these horrors. So you want to watch something that's not connected with that. And yes, art is original. It's an original impulse, but we are also social people, and there is the desire. I mean, eventually we create art as the form of communication and expression. So it's very difficult, yes, to kind of like create in a void. It is not kind of like entering the void and allowing yourself to receive, but there's something that is missing. Okay, that is missing. But also the understanding that when you think about, and I want to give you this understanding, because if you somehow still manage to watch this video, even though it's like black screen and just me talking, and it doesn't seem so visually appealing or sensory appealing in any way, and yes, you are in sensory deprivation, I'm not into that, but anyway, what it really is that if you are creating, whether it's content creation or art or expression or even academic writing or expression of yourself, your thoughts or philosophies in some way, and you kind of feel like that never really lifts, it can be because you're not a part of these cults. And the really, the kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back, we have this saying in Hebrew, it's kind of like the one, the last straw was that influencers on YouTube began to be invited to these parties. Okay? Sure, I got DMs from Illuminati on Twitter, but it's not like, and when I didn't respond, this is where the shadow banning, and I'm not talking about shadow banning like David Icke said, I'm shadow banned with million viewers, okay? I'm not neglecting, he has his own genius, he definitely spoke up about things that nobody spoke up about, and he's been banned in several countries, and so on, even changed his language when we talk about, it's not like the Jews, but really talking about the elite cults, and not bashing like an entire society. So he's changing, he's listening. So it's not like me shading him. It's just saying that for people who weren't even a part of this, and for better or for worse, for better very likely, weren't even a part of kind of like the mainstream communication and then banned, then the shadow ban is real. But what I want to say to you is that maybe some of you are having your own teachings or skill or content or whatnot, and you don't get noticed, and it's very likely because you're not part of those very, very destructive, entrapping groups, because they're entrapping. Even from the first go, they're entrapping. So I met this in academia, and I had to take a break from academia. Okay, they were not like the block did not came from them after the Me Too. Okay, I have to also be honest and authentic. Yes, I could go back, but I had to take a break for my own sanity. I felt like physically I just need a break from the entire system. And yes, it's also true to certain type of like alternative healing, but also conventional healing. People be quoting Osho and stuff like that. So of course, this is also in those communities. And in astrology, of course, astrological magic, you can, like, people use these symbols. You already see that. And so when it comes to content creation, that's just all over the place, because it's an understanding that you're the face of the media. You are at a key influence and at the point of intervention that is usually occupied by some cult. And this is why you either get the shadow ban, even if you don't talk about it. For me, it was like, oh yes, I talk about, I don't know, some political stuff. So of course that's, but even if you're not dealing with that at all and you're just doing some entertainment, then you're still going to be they're going to try to recruit you in some way into that. And when you don't apply, of course, here comes the shadow ban. So if somehow you got to watch this video, I hope that at least the healing part for our voices, where it's not about your talent, it's not about your voice. You see, for me, it's like it's not the most visually appealing channel, and it was difficult for me to put my heart and soul into this, because something, when you learn to be present with your body, it won't allow you even to do these things. And And I understand why, because I was like, why? Okay, it's like, it's my own means of expression. Yeah, maybe I need to build a website or something. What are the blocks to kind of like success or be more visible, and engaging with people? And I understand that is because I'm not enabling and or a part of these communes and these cults, and it's everywhere. So and seeing other content creators that were invited sharing their stories and the horrors, I understand that yes, this is the problem that we are dealing with. Speaking about this is the first step. Being aware of it is the first step, because this creates, first of all, difficulty to literally get a job. And I'm not even talking about the part of like having a successful business or successful career. I'm not even talking about this just yet. Even the ability, the energy to do stuff that is productive, whether in work, okay, whether you're working for 7-Eleven, or you're working as a politician, or you're working as an astrologer, or you're working as a content creator. And the very difficulty, this is also why these people begin to use drugs, or amphetamines to get themselves, to get the body. What it's doing is basically, at a certain range, it can assist with resolving trauma. That's how amphetamines worked for me. And then I removed the use of them. But at other places, it's like to get themselves out of bed, to organize the room, to record a podcast. Okay, they already need these extra stuff. Sometimes astrological talismans can work, but then the very fact that you need something external to you to allow you to even do so many things that people that don't click with people. Okay, people are not as energy sensitive. They may not click with them, although I think more and more people now understand that there is a reason the body cannot work the way it used to, or that you're not putting yourself into your endeavors as much as you used to, and there's a desire, yes, to do something with yourself, but also an understanding that we really need to tackle this infiltration of the enabling of torture, of child exploitation. And another penny that dropped after watching Bernard Ronald, and yes, I do believe him, and yes, I do believe Annika Lucas and the many testimonials. And I also want to say something about that. When a person goes through such tortures and stuff like that, the person themselves has a dissociation and thinking, am I dreaming? Is this even real? And this energy can project itself to you. So sometimes the reason you're like, oh, is this real? Is this, is this that? Is because you're basically experiencing a part of their experience and you're dissociating from that. As well. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're on purpose being victim blaming. Sometimes it's just like you're sensitive to energy and you're experiencing their own experience. And it's the fogginess that is actually a testimonial for some of these cases. And so when Bernard Ronald, who was an ex-banker, Dutch ex-banker, talks about the way he signed the rank that he was in some satanic society, I don't remember what. When I say Satan, please, I mean the way that they practiced it, not Saturn, which is the lord of karma, which basically means that you need to do good for you, and if not, Saturn comes and smacks you and like, okay, now get going. This is Saturn, okay? This is not Satan, okay? It's not. But people invert stuff. Also for the 7th of October, so I talked about all these like penis stuff, drawings, and actually worshiping the phallus. Phallus is just like the vagina, is the fertility symbol and life-giving symbol. Okay, worshiping of the phallus is appreciating and admiring life-giving symbols. Okay, of course, willing consent is necessary for the the arousal being wet, being hard, and everything to go well, the contractions give the orgasms to both, like the penis and the vagina, or of course you need really. This is like the real stuff. But when people use it like for war and stuff, they do something really completely bizarre with that. Also with the number 7, which is apparently the letter Ha in Oka in Arab, and was used for like Hamas. Like he's so 7 is associated both with Saturn, which is again the lord of karma. It's not like Satan. It's not that the children of the dead. No, it's just like on the 7th day, you freaking rest because you're not a slave. Okay, and this is also, it's the rest that and the dedication. Many things, yes, but not like those things, what they make of it. And is also associated with Venus, which is associated with Lucifer, which is associated with pleasure, for which willing consent is necessary. If you want continuous pleasure and to be able to experience pleasure throughout your life, willing consent is necessary. Just like if you want to continue to work, Saturn, rest and sleep is necessary, okay? It's not the Lucifer of let's take children and torture them for the God. It's not that Lucifer, okay? It's not that Lucifer, not that Satan, not that 7, not that Venus, not that Ka. Okay, a letter in the Arabic alphabet is not guilty for those things, but it also shows you the deep involvement of a cult. And when I go back to Bernard Ronald, he was not signing in his blood the contract of secrecy for that secret society to reach the rank where they started to do rituals in children, and he said, I cannot do this. Okay? He went out, he was tortured, very tremendously, physically tortured, so that he wouldn't say the names of the people, and he had to keep this secret because the only people who would ally with him were criminals. He had to make money, so he had to ally with criminals, and the criminals did not like pedophilia, so he would ally with them rather than with the pedophilia in the cult. Okay, so you just so you get what places does a person who just wants to make a living get. His whole interest in like the banking was like, hey, he wants to retire, he wants to have money for his family, he just needs a paycheck. They tell him, okay, but you gotta put your conscience on a freezer. And he's been through sexual violence for 2 years when he was a child. So he put his conscience on a freezer, but when he got to the rank where they used to, what I'm saying is that if he would sign with blood, they would just kill him. This is how he stayed alive. Okay, he was not assassinated when he left the cult. But what you have to understand is that those rituals in children, the torture, the rape, the trafficking, the this, the that, it's not with the rank where you sign with blood. It's like there's even a higher rank where people sign with blood. So it's not unlikely if you think, what is the higher rank when people sign with blood? Okay, it's very likely what we see as slaughtering of villages, genocide, and so on and so forth. The cult also decides when people will die. So if you see JFK, his story, and so on, so people will make peace, they're assassinated. And so when you sign with blood, you basically are sacrificing very likely a group of people and causing genocides and so on and so forth. So what we are likely seeing in this world war is a shift in the higher ranks where you do sign with blood, and this is why you have a world war. Okay, and a part of why you have, yes, of course, it's about resources and power, and you basically become a part of the decision makers of how to move wealth. And that's the point of like this higher up the ranks, and this is why banking is so important. Okay, if you take Adolf Hitler, he was homeless. He was not invited to fight with the rest of the guys because he was Austrian, and he was artistic, but he was not accepted anywhere. And then he was probably recruited to a cult and started to learn acting, learn his how to speak, take amphetamines. I did not know he was taking amphetamines. I knew he was taking drugs, but I did not know he was taking amphetamines. And then instead of like, if he had a problem with the bankers, with the higher up the rank, he would have solved them. He would tackle the problem. But again, just like this, just like everybody who is indoctrinated in these cults, he was pushed to move things to the city, to kill the people who are disabled, all the people that he promised to help. Okay, it's kind of like the working class. So, but if you could not work, then you were okay. So, although it's actually helpful for the working class that there are people who are not working full-time job or that need the rest, or okay, it's creating more work, more access to good income for all of us when we appreciate life more. But it was probably not stupid. You probably knew this, but the occult, they don't allow this, and then he was being put as this puppet where we would hate Hitler for the entire Second World War. Where in fact he was not the only one who was signing, and it's not, and it's very likely signing with blood, but he committed suicide. Okay, so this is where you understand that those actors that play the world leaders are also entrapped in these kind of positions. Okay, if you're like a homeless person that's creative, but he said I could not be an officer. Basically, Hitler's problem was that he could not do a job. Okay, but then the cult made him kill everybody that would. Okay, so it's very, very fucking weird, and it really is where this is why people who are performers or creative writers are recruited so much, and this is why you don't get the visibility unless you apply with the agenda of the cult. And it's very likely that from your childhood you are not oriented towards this. So it's very likely that it's not the natural way for you, and it's not natural way for anybody. They trap these people and they torture these people, and this is how these things happen. So most of these people, they want to go out of these cults, but yes, the very heavy prices to pay, and also where to. Okay, where to? What will happen with them later? And the many creative people are not the people that you put in. My attempts to work a job, they were funny, one more funny than the other, till eventually my bosses decided, they were like, okay, like you need to be doing something creative, like you not here, like you need to be doing something for yourself, and so on, and I guess this is it's a healing moment in the sense that you can perhaps return to validate yourself a little and understand that it's not about the lack of talent or the lack of connections, because these are the connections. Okay, these are the connections, and it's also not because you're just sick. It's because you're intelligent and your body's intelligent, and we need to change this reality so that we can be creative again. We need to tackle that, whether it's for musicians, for performers, for people of the word, anybody who has expression in them. This is yes, we are meant to shine, and this is important to address, and it's important for you to have this information, because when you open YouTube, all you see is influencers this, influencers that, and great content. Okay, very creative people, great content, very talented people. It doesn't take away from the fact that they're talented, but what you don't see is that arriving anywhere near you, or you having the energy to even invest in that. And this is not because you're not consistent, or you have a problem with your will or your self-esteem. It is because you have a problem that you're not a cultist in this fashion, and you're not an enabler. That dawned on me. Okay, it still doesn't fix the world, but there's a great calling. I think that this calling is not just within me, and perhaps it's a part of what the Jupiterianus does. Okay, it's kind of like, hey, these occults, this very inverted, skewed perceptions of whether divinity or divine or spirit or whatnot. Yes, because there's enough abuse like in the churches and stuff. But yeah, it's kind of like, never mind. It's kind of like the controlled op is like that Lucifer, okay? And how should I say it? It's the understanding of how deep is the involvement of these things in those Taurian industries, in those expressive industries, in the performance industries as well. But every industry, it is in medicine, it is in science, it is in academia, it is pretty much all around in army. Okay, if you wonder about army decisions that look funny to you, and you think like, well, I'm not a commander, I'm not a sergeant, or maybe you are, and you're like, this is a very funny decision when it comes to like the army, or if it was really a war, then they wouldn't make these decisions, they wouldn't make other decisions. You are not imagining. Okay, it's everywhere. So I think with the great calling that we are receiving now, there's also going to be great actions, and there are also going to be great movements, and there are also going to be great changes. Because when we are aware of this, then we create a point of interference, we create movement. This is the alchemy of awareness. And this is why I'm recording this second testimonial. And I hope, yes, I didn't bring like the everything into it. I remember when I was doing a little bit of music, which meant recording myself singing. And other beautiful people just recorded some music to it, and it was very lovely. I remember that back then it was like Scientology, people were afraid of Scientology, but those things that they back then, 2006, 2007, we didn't feel them so much, because YouTube just went from being, I think, a dating site to some place where you could find music, and so there was nobody doing anything, and then we were like recording. It was a chance that nobody had. It was certain types of communities and certain patterns, and there was beauty to it, and there was difficulty to it, and that's what it was. And then, YouTube began to be YouTube. And you hardly see these people that just, open a mic and record. And very rarely do you see them. And if you pay attention to them, even though there are many people talented, you understand that there is another thing going, okay? Regardless of where they're coming from, what the skin color, what the culture. So it's like there is inclusivity, but this inclusivity comes with the price of the old structure still, which was Pluto in Capricorn, okay? We do see like famous black artists that don't have to hide their blackness, but it's still at the price of those inverted Luciferian, inverted satanistic, inverted everything cults, and we're talking child torture, we're talking genocide, we're talking ritual rapes, we're talking really fucked up stuff. Okay, I'm not here being. It's not a doggone thing. It's not about, there are this clique, and because I don't fit in, then I this, and it's not a problem. When YouTube was, 2006, 2007, people that I didn't know from like I don't know where were recording to my like music to my voice. We could do stuff. Okay, we could connect. We could do stuff. There were other problems, but there were, like you could do stuff. But now is very much like the minute you just show your face and you make some good content, immediately you're recruited. And if you don't apply to that, then you're gonna be shadow banned and kind of like sanctioned for not being a part of the cult, so that you won't be a threat to the cult. And David Icke is right on when he says that. I think is very true. And it's also very important to remember what Bernard Ronald, who went pretty high up the cult and then, unsubscribed at a very heavy price, is that the people that are in there, many of them are trapped. Okay, so it's not like we have devils walking. We have people who went through excruciating torture and are entrapped and in various types of patterns and stuff like that, and some of them would face death if they even tried, whether it's to whistleblow or to walk away, and so on and so forth. Whereas our desire to shine in the world is a genuine desire. Our desire to experience love is a genuine desire. To experience connections, social connections, is a genuine desire. To experience healing. When you think about EMDR being so tight for like let's say Scientology, and I don't know what's the relation between Scientology and those other cults. I'm not an expert in that, but you think it's people that just want to heal themselves, okay? Like really fucked up stuff, and I think that it's a part of what Pluto is exposing in general, and a part of like the reality check to the world. And within the Great Disillusion, there is a longing for something that is real, and longings tend to manifest. I do believe that. So I hope that this reaches you if you're a person that needs to hear that. That you understand you're not alone with that, you're not invalid for your experience, you're not imagining, and you're not just being, sour about something. There genuinely are things that work here, and I hope this helps, okay? Because most of you people, when you put yourself to what you love, you become better at it, and you become worthy of watching, worthy of listening to. You're becoming, your value in what you love doing is growing, okay? And so I want you to keep that in mind. And I also want you to understand that this difficulty to put yourself into what you love has to do with those things that are energy blocks that are disintegrated. And I also want you to hold the compassion for the people who are supposedly having this fame or visibility, and are actually entrapped in these cults. It doesn't mean that we should just let sex offenders against children slide, or sex offenders slide. Absolutely not. It does mean that it's the entire structure that needs to be disintegrated, and we need to allow something way more beautiful for us to grow, and to grow with love, and for children to grow with love. So yeah, that's my conclusion.